Okay, Dory, why is it today that so many artists are doing documentaries?
I think that people are so inundated with the moving image, be it television or YouTube or whatever you'd like, movies. I think people want to have a refuge in the still, which is spending the time looking at a painting and understanding what the artist is trying to say through a still image. It's more of yourself that you can bring to the process as opposed to what you're fed. And I personally love art, and I'm currently working on a project about Francis Bacon. I'm just in the research stages, and as you all know, there's the show at the Met on the 20th, which he'd be 100 years now. Mm-hmm. And I feel that he is someone who, during the whole abstract art period, he stayed as a figurative painter, which I thought was particularly interesting, and he did have his own individual style, which I find fascinating, which frightens my children to no end. They're like, what? But I think he really has something to say, and I think he's going to stand the test of time. So I personally love art, and I would like to get more information about painters, the ones that are here now. Obviously I can't do Francis, but other painters currently painting. I'd like to work with them so we can have a catalog of their work.
I find that people are so afraid to talk to artists, business people particularly. I went to a dinner party last night and I could see they had no idea how to talk to the artists. Do you think making documentaries opens that up? And tell us about William Buckley.
Oh, well, yeah. Yes, absolutely, I agree with you. People are frightened. It's sort of like if you're a banker, you're scared to talk to an artist, and if you're an artist, you're scared to talk to a banker. But without the two, you're never going to have anything. They're actually very connected, as we all know. But they're two separate worlds. Anyway, in terms of Buckley, that was probably the highlight of my career so far. He was the most generous man. He was so engaging, and he acted as if somebody really important had come to speak to him. He actually said at the beginning of the film, anything you want to talk to me about is fine. I thought, oh, this is like incredible. Of course I felt like, what am I going to say? I'm really not up to this level. But he was so generous, and he was so interested in other people and also ideas. He wasn't one of these guys, as we all know, who yells. He would have an intelligent discourse, even if he completely disagreed with you, which I thought was just so incredibly refreshing, and I felt like I was smarter when I left there, you know. It was a little scary, but it was really quite fabulous.
What did he say about Ginsberg, or what
Oh, yeah, there's a clip in here. He had Ginsberg on, and Kerouac, as I said, and he said positive things about them both, but when he was interviewing Ginsberg, Ginsberg said, can I play this instrument? So he did play this instrument, and he sang Hare Krishna on TV, which, you know, was kind of different at the time. And so Buckley said, well, that is the most un-Hare Krishna I have ever heard. You know, and so, you know, he's quite fun. So I actually would have loved to have done a whole film just on him. And I'm working now in fine art photography additionally, because it's a lot easier in terms of doing it alone. I love filmmaking, but it's a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of money, whereas it's you and the camera and your Photoshop. So I've actually done some work on that interview. I have some still photographs, and I'm kind of making some interesting collage styles out of them. So it continues.
And what about Kerouac?
Well, Kerouac, oh my Lord, the poor man, he was in the middle of, I guess, the decline of alcoholism, and he was completely bombed on the show. And Buckley said every time they would like go to, you know, a commercial or to something else, he said he would take a big swig out of the bottle, and he said, listen, you know, we can't go on if you're going to keep drinking this. And he said, no, I'm fine. Anyway, so we did conclude the interview, but it was really, it was wild. It was really,
Jim Knowles, who owns this hotel, I don't think a lot of people saw it. Chris Buckley did an article about his father and mother in the Sunday Times a couple weeks ago, and Jim Knowles had done the cross, and so Chris said, what are we going to do? We have to sell the house. The cross is there with the ashes of my father. And the father always just thought that everybody would love to have a cross in the front of their house. What do you think of that?
I think it's real estate-wise, it might be a little bit of a duplicate sell. You got a small group, you know. It was funny though. The book, unfortunately, I'm going to read it because I have mixed feelings about it. I think Christopher Buckley is a great writer, and I think he's an interesting guy, and I'm glad Buckley was not my dad, and Pat was not my mother. They were both fascinating, but that's a lot to live up to. But I am going to read it, but I thought it was quite funny, though, the conversation that he had between the two. But the father was he had very solid ideas, and he was older when they were discussing this. But I guess, I don't know what happened in the end, because I think he did still sell Stanford. And you know, this was Manhattan where I interviewed him.